Hey everyone, Michelle Sadling here with another episode of Food Experience Unplugged. Today we're looking at the importance of food and wellness on productivity. Here to help us do that is Scott Maderer, a finance and productivity coach and founder of Inspired Stewardship. This podcast is available on multiple platforms, including YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and others, as well as our website at foodexperienceunplugged.com. Please be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform for new content as it becomes available. Please also check out our website at foodexperienceunplugged.com for some free resources as you begin your health journey. Scott Maderer, welcome to Food Experience Unplugged.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here, talk to your listeners a little bit about what we've got to talk about today with productivity and energy and all of those things and how they fit together.
Oh, fantastic. Well, you seem to have a lot of energy today, which is perfect for our show.
No, I'm just faking my enthusiasm. You know how that is.
Well,
No,
okay.
I'm excited to be here. Absolutely.
Great. Well, to start off, will you introduce yourself for a minute and what brought you to this point in your life and in your career?
Sure, I can talk a little bit about kind of how I got here. My name is Scott Maderer, and I currently run a full-time coaching business under Inspired Stewardship. How I got here is a little more complicated than that. I actually went to school to become a medical researcher. I have a degree, actually a couple of degrees in hard sciences. I started doing medical research and figured out that it was all political and about money and not actually about doing science, which I did not enjoy. So I left that. I became a school teacher for 16 years. Met my wife, we got married, and in that process of being a school teacher, we had our son, who's now 17, which is hard to believe, but he is. And I basically, after several years of teaching, after 16 years, I kind of burned out on that. I taught science and taught middle school, taught high school, did different things. But I really, in part, talking about energy and productivity, it was a huge suck of my time. And a lot of emotional energy goes into being a teacher. And I began to find that I was getting depressed. I was having other issues. I wasn't maintaining my own health. I wasn't taking care of myself right. And all of those things compounded. And I ended up leaving teaching and going into the corporate world for 11 years. I worked for educational testing service. So I wrote tests for a living. My students said I joined the dark side, that basically. So I did that. And as part of that, I ended up kind of becoming a road warrior. I ended up spending a lot of time doing projects for different states. And so, I'd be in California, and then I'd be in Maryland, and then I'd be in Tennessee, and whatever, all over the country. Which means I got to know what a lot of hotel rooms and airports look like, because that's basically where you spend all your time when you travel for business. So again, as I was doing that, I began to focus in on myself because I realized I wasn't doing a good job of managing my time. I wasn't doing a good job of managing my energy. I wasn't doing a good job of taking care of myself, my own health, and my own wellness. Needless to say, I was eating bad food, not sleeping enough, all of those wonderful things that come along with kind of letting that go. And so I began to kind of do a really intense study on taking care of your energy, taking care of your time, taking care of your productivity. And also as part of that, because for me, it became a spiritual issue. And that's why the brand is Stewardship, Inspired Stewardship. It's about managing all of those resources that come to me. How do I use my time? How to use my talent? How do I use my money, my treasures? How do I use my energy? How do I use everything that I've got? So I began to study all of that together, and my wife and I started a coaching business on the side in 2011. And over the next few years, it kind of grew and grew and grew. And so I took it full time in 2017. And now this is what my wife and I do as our full-time business is we work with people in those areas of time, talent, and treasures on how to align what you're doing and really do the things that are most important to you and do them well while still taking care of yourself, taking care of your family, taking care of everything else that you need to.
Fantastic. I love that you focus on that balance of with time and with money and with other your talents and balancing food. That's fantastic. I love that focus. And I think even your other background is really, do you feel like it's contributed a lot to what you're doing now as a coach?
Absolutely. My mother jokes because I tell her I took my business full time as a coach in 2017, and she's like, "Son, you were a coach when you were 8. Okay, you just didn't charge people money. You always been that's always kind of been my personality. I started my when in college I started a tutoring group, and I was helping other people with the classes that they found hard, and so teaching came natural. Part of teaching is being a coach. When I was in the corporate world, I was up in senior management. I had leaders reporting to me who had people reporting to them. So my whole job was develop people. I mean, it
Mm,
wasn't really, yes, I did a lot of actual, writing test questions and stuff too, but my main focus of my job was really on having the team run well, which means it was all about developing people. So I spent most of my time coaching much more than, doing. So all of that kind of fits together and made it where when I went to do coaching, it was like, oh yeah, okay, this is what I've been doing already. I just didn't call it that. Got it. Okay, now I can go switch over to that and call it by that name.
Oh, fantastic. Yes, and you're the dream lives the dream lives on, so to speak, with as you're coaching. So, speaking of productivity, now a lot of time productivity is such a generic term, but does it mean different things to different people, or is there kind of a standard, I don't know, definition or something?
Well, obviously you could look up the definition in Webster's dictionary and get what is the quote textbook definition. But quite frankly, for me, productivity, I think sometimes we use that word and sure, different people mean different things. But if I had to put a definition on it for myself, it would be it's not about getting more done, it's about getting the right things done. And
Mm.
the trick there is knowing what the right things are. That's the hard part. Okay. Like for instance, I hate the term time management. Everyone always talks about time management. It's like, well, you kind of have the same amount of time every day. You kind of have the same amount of time every week. So does everybody else. It's not like you get more time and someone else has less. It's more so, which is what they mean by time management. How do you apply that? How do you use that? I think of it more as first off energy management than time management, and then it's more about priorities. And so that makes productivity, that layer above it, be about focusing on, what is the things that you really value? What are the things that you find most important? Let's get those done and then fit the other stuff in around the edges, as opposed to what we normally do, which is we focus on all this other stuff. And then the really big rocks that are actually the most important things to us, we don't
Mm,
actually allocate enough time for them, and they just they're supposed to fit in around the margins, and so therefore they never happen, or they
mm,
don't happen well. At the very least they just kind of happen piecemeal.
Excellent point. I love that. So it's more than just getting stuff done. It's more really you and with your clients focus on what things, on prioritizing and determining what things they should be getting done.
Absolutely. It's a lot on finding we even before you start with goals, you got to go back another step and think about values. Think about what are the things that you truly say are the most important to you. And then what I always tell people is let's do an audit. Let's look at your checkbook, let's look at your calendar and see if those things are reflected in those two documents.
Mm.
More often than not, the answer is no. If you sit down and you write out your values and what's important to you, God, family, this, that, the other thing, whatever is important to you, and then you go over and you look at your calendar and you've only had one family day in the last 6 months, well, then how can you really say family is important to you? If you go and you look
Mm,
at your checkbook and you're not doing anything that shows that you're using some of your resources to either learn and develop or to spend, you know, time and money doing something, well, then it's really not in alignment. You're not spending your life energy in alignment with what you say is most important to you. At that point,
mm,
you've got two choices: either change what you say is important to you,
mm.
or
True.
change how you spend your time and energy. Change how you spend your resources. For most of us, what it is they look at it and they go, well, no, these are really the things that are important to me. Okay, well, then stop living your life the way you're living. Let's look at how we can change that.
Mm,
So a lot of times, it's not about being busy, which is just getting a lot of stuff done. More often than not, the biggest problem people have is they don't know what to say no to. It's
mm,
not about what you say yes to. It's what do you say no to? Because every yes is guarded by 1,000 no's. If going to the gym and taking care of your health that way is vital to you, then you've got to put that on your calendar first. That becomes primary. You mentioned earlier prioritize, and we tend to use the word priorities nowadays, plural. Priority means the one thing that comes before all others. That's what the word means. You can't have more than one priority. You can have more than one value, but how you prioritize is really about what comes first.
Okay.
Okay, that's your priority. Now, what do I allow to come second? That's not really your priority, but it's second on my list. And then what's third, and then what's fourth, and then what's fifth. It's really not priorities plural, it's singular priority, and then everything else comes after that. That's one of the confusions that people often have when it comes to productivity is everything's important, therefore nothing is.
Mm,
You know,
good point. So, yes, I love that. Just really focusing on, okay, what's the one thing? And then when I'm done with that, okay, what's number two and number three,
right.
et cetera. So,
And those things can shift. I mean, obviously, as your life goes on, sometimes those things shift. Sometimes because of an event. Again, in the health and wellness field, I've had clients that they have a heart attack. Boy, suddenly diet and exercise and all of these, those are go right to the top of the list because it's kind of like I do this or I die. Okay, well, that kind of moves it up the list. It also can just be life, things that happen through life. When you've got young kids, you have to do different things than now. I've got a 17-year-old. I can kind of leave him alone all day and he's pretty self-sufficient. It's not the same. Do that with a 3-year-old, you've got a problem. Okay, that's child abuse. That's not appropriate. So you kind of it's going to change as your life changes and even as your situation changes. So it's not about, okay, I have one thing and it's always that one thing, but it's about how do you juggle and adjust and build a system and build processes that allow you to do that in a dynamic way so that more often than not you're moving towards those things that are most important. You're never going to be perfect, but it's about trying to do more of that, as opposed to, again, what we tend to do, which is just sort of catch as catch can piecemeal. I'll go to the gym 3 times a week, and then when you actually go back and look at it, you've gone to the gym once in the last 3 months. Well, we got to readjust what you're doing because what you're doing is not working.
Yes. And on that note, where does food and wellness come in the priority or getting, addressing the big rocks versus the smaller things?
So as I said earlier, the way I look at managing time is really much more about managing energy. First off, we all have natural cycles. You've heard the term morning lark or night owl, or there's actually three if you think about the rhythms of energy that we have, and the other one is called a third bird. Generic name, but there you go. And it just has to do with the peaks and valleys of how our rhythms run during the day. So some of it is being aware of what's your natural bent. How do you kind of naturally live your life? Where are your peak energy and your low energy? One of the things is to then adjust what you do during the day to kind of fit that. If you're at your best in the morning, you want to kind of put your most important stuff in the morning, because that's when you're best. That take the stuff that takes the most brain power, put it then. And as part of that, food fits in because, again, one of the things that'll happen to people is they kind of put food in around the margins. I know when I was in the corporate world, oftentimes I was eating on the run at my desk, 10 minutes, whatever I could grab, and usually it was junk. And then about an hour and a half later, I have this huge crash in my energy and I want to crawl under the desk and take a nap. It took me a while to figure out, eating sugar and all of this crud for lunch probably isn't doing me any favors. Let's look into this a little bit more. And so I began to eat more, of things that, for me at least, would level that energy out. Now, that doesn't mean I was still for me, my peak was not right after lunch. That wasn't like my highest energy. Wow, I'm ready to go. But at least I wasn't crashing. I could still function. I could still get things done. I didn't put my most important task in that window of time because for my rhythms, it was not the highest energy peak. But again, by paying attention to my energy, I was able to track back and recognize, hey, what you're doing, eating junk food, eating it quickly, eating at my desk, isn't working. Okay, I got to go leave my desk and go to the break room, or go leave my desk and go outside, or I would go for a walk. after lunch. So we had a relatively large office. And so if I made a big loop around the office, it was a not insignificant walk. So
Mhm.
I would go take about 3 laps around the office. Well, plus that let me go visit with
Mhm.
people and say hi to check in with my employees. So there was kind of a ulterior motive too. But what did that do? It got blood pumping, it got things moving again, got me away from the computer screen, which suck the life out of you if you spend all your time in front of them. And I still do, and it still does, but those sorts of things. So a lot of it comes back to recognizing your own internal rhythms, paying attention to those things, and paying attention to what's happening to your energy level, and then tracking back and either working with a health and wellness person, working with a nutritionist, working with bringing in those resources so that you can kind of figure out, what do I need to change, what do I need to tweak, so that at the end of the day, it's never going to be perfect. You always have peaks and valleys of your energy, but your valleys aren't crashing, and instead are up at a level where you're doing well. I actually think we have that after lunch slump that everybody has, where they, oh, I'm ready to take a nap, and some of that's natural, but
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be as bad as it usually is
Mhm.
if you're taking care of your health and wellness. You're doing the exercise that you need to do, you're eating well, as opposed to what a lot of us eat, which is junk. you know I, as an example, I drink a ton more water now that I've become aware of how dehydrated I really was.
Mhm.
I've dramatically increased my intake of water. I don't drink soda anymore, to speak of. Every once in a while when I'm out at a restaurant, I'll have one, but it's just kind of an indulgent treat at that point. It's not a normal thing. That helps with my energy levels throughout the day, because I think one of the reasons that my energy would drop is, again, my body's going, dude, go drink a glass of water. But I wasn't doing it. I wasn't listening to what it was asking me to do.
Excellent point. So as you sip your water, very
A-
nice.
As I take a drink of water.
Now you're, no longer, in the corporate job. Now you're doing the coaching full time and just a variety of different activities. So what's your balance? What's worked for you? You mentioned hydration. You've taken on a lot of water. Any other things that have worked for you from a health and wellness perspective?
Yeah, one of the things I pay a lot of attention to, sugar intake. I think processed food, especially processed sugar. It's not that I'm completely and never ever taken any sugar anywhere. Not that I think there's anything wrong with that if you live your life that way. It's just I haven't, but I do pay attention to it. I try to moderate that a great deal, because it's just omnipresent in food nowadays. We do a lot of cooking at home. We live out in the country, and so we do a lot of barbecuing and a lot of cooking at home of chicken or fish or beef or whatever we're eating. We also do a lot of eating of more fruits and vegetables and this sort of thing, as opposed to eating a lot of the sugary kind of processed food or prepackaged food that comes. Again, not perfect about it. We don't absolutely never do it. We'll have a pizza every once in a while and those sorts of things too. And I think that's okay. I think a lot of it is about moderation. If you come back to it and that's all you're ever eating is fast food, there's a couple of number one, it's not good for your health and your energy. Number two, it's not good for your pocketbook, because it tends to be more expensive to eat that way too. But
Sure.
it also helps you maintain your energy. So for me, I can literally tell in my energy levels of the day, if I didn't eat well the day before, that then I'm going to be at a much lower energy. Other things that I do, because I now am in control of my time, I'm a firm believer in afternoon naps. Because I can block off 30 minutes on my calendar and go take a 30-minute power nap.
Okay.
Yeah, it was hard to do whenever I was a teacher or whenever I was in the corporate
Mhm.
world. Now I'm in control of my time. I can do that. And people laugh and are like, "You're taking naps as an adult?" It's like, yeah, and they help. But because oftentimes I'll have meetings or training sessions that I'm doing or something else that go 7 o'clock at night. Well, I capture back that an hour in the middle of the day, and that helps kind of get my energy going for the afternoon kinds of activities as well, and into the evening. If I don't do that, if I don't listen to that rhythm in my body, then by 7, when I've got that client call, I'm not at my best. And I've got to be my best when I'm teaching or when I'm doing a coaching practice, to make sure I'm giving my best to that other. So those are a couple of the things that I do.
Okay, excellent. I love that. I love just how you get to know yourself,
Mhm.
etc. essentially. Um, and now, what about with the clients that you work with as a coach? How do you help them to manage their energy in terms of productivity and so forth?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. There's a few things. A lot of it is getting them to refocus on what is really going on in their life. I think for a lot of us, we're so busy and there's so much coming at us, and it's information overload. There's literally 1,000 pieces of information by the time you've gotten to work in the morning. It's just amazing how quickly life comes at us, and because of that, we don't take the time to take a breath, listen to what's going on, refocus on what's most important, put those things down, and then begin to develop the what I call systems and processes and habits. So,
Mhm,
as an example, I think everyone needs at least 4 routines in their life. Now, you can have more than these. Now, a routine, to
mhm,
define that, is a structured set of activities that you do as a habit, meaning it happens
mhm.
all the time.
Okay.
It's just a natural occurrence. So, one of those is a morning routine. What do you do when you get up? This does not mean running around like a chicken with your head cut off because you got up 20 minutes late and you're trying to, get everything together before you go to work. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the regular set of things. Do you meditate? Do you drink water? Do you have a cup of coffee? Do what are the natural things that you do? Well, and how do you structure those? And then examining those to make sure that there's the right things are fitting in.
Mm,
Again, if spirituality is important to you, are you spending some time in that area in the morning? If that's not important to you, fine. What is important? And let's put that into your morning routine. So it's a morning routine. The other end is an evening routine. What do you do to shut yourself down for the night? A lot of us,
mm.
go to bed, put our head on the pillow, and we're still holding the phone in front of our face, looking at the screen. Not a good routine, right? We all know that. We know that looking at the screens doesn't help us sleep. We know that it's not going to be conducive. We're going to have insomnia and all these, and yet we do it anyway. Okay. So, what are you doing for sleep hygiene? What are you doing for health and wellness before you go to bed? This isn't just about like brushing my teeth, though that usually makes the list and is probably important. It's also, it's also other things. Are you spending time reading? Are you just binging on Netflix until you kind of crash to sleep on the couch?
Mm,
Not a good routine. So it's about, again, examining that. And then the other two that kind of fit in between them is a work startup and a work shutdown routine.
mm.
Because again,
Right.
one of the things that happens to us, whether you're working from home, like so many are right now, whether you're working in an office, it doesn't matter. A lot of times you kind of tend to walk in and it's like, oh my goodness, everything's happening to me. What do I do? It's Monday morning every day of the week, right? It's that kind of chaos that comes with that. Instead, it's about deliberately structuring what am I going to do when I get to work and in what order. Where
Mm,
does opening my email fit in?
mhm,
Might not need to be first.
mm,
Okay. And yet, for a lot of us, that's the first thing you do when you show up at the office or when you turn on your work computers, go check email. And now all of a sudden, you've got 1,000 priorities coming at you, and you haven't even spent any time thinking about what is actually most important for me to get done today. Oh, I've got that 10 a.m. appointment and it's a very important appointment and I need to finish that report. Maybe I should do that before I turn on my email and see what else has come at me, or at least lay it out and get ready for it, something like that. So you got to have to actually have a routine that allows you to get into work in an efficient way. And then the other end is a shutdown routine. How do you lay out what I need to do tomorrow, get it all out of my head, capture it so that when I walk away from work, I can actually leave work behind.
mm,
Because nowadays, most of us, work is on our phone, work is in our head 24 hours a day.
mm.
That's not
Good
healthy.
point.
You need to be able to have some time where that's not what you're thinking about. And there are ways you can structure your day to do that. By the way, I've done that with CEOs, I've done that with sales professionals, I've done that with, stay-at-home people that work from home, small business owners. It's possible, no matter what your job is, to structure your day that way. It doesn't happen instantaneously, it's not easy, but it is possible. And what that allows you to do is kind of flush those things out and have a more structured routine with flexibility within it, because
Mhm,
you need some flexibility because life is not rigid, but that allows you to keep that energy where you can go in and out of work every day without having it be the drain that it often is. And the reason it's a drain is because it lives in our head 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, as opposed to letting ourselves have some time to decompress, to walk away, to let your brain rest, let your energy recover. And you feel that if you think about it.
Sure, absolutely. So basically, keeping work at work, keeping home at home, and then just kind of analyzing your routines a little bit.
Hmm.
So then you can overlay a food and wellness routine throughout, or is
Absolutely.
there? Okay.
So within that, and again, so for me, I don't dictate to a client. So I don't come to a client and say, I think food and wellness should be the most important. Not because it's not important, but because for me, I don't, that's not how I approach it. But as we work together, if for instance, energy is one of your problems, well, then food and wellness is going to become part of the conversation we're going to have. Because more often than not, that's part of, it may not be all of, but it's at least a large part of what's going on. So then we're going to start examining. I've had clients keep a food log before. What are you eating? How's your energy going throughout the day? Hmm. What do you know? We notice a pattern here. When you skip lunch, you don't feel good in the afternoon. Shocking. Okay, maybe we shouldn't skip lunch. Doy. But the problem is, again, we're not paying attention. So within that, we're going to layer in structure that allows them to monitor what they're doing, including health and wellness, whether that's food, whether that's sleep. That again, I think sleep is a big one for a lot of us because we give up sleep. People think the way to get more done is I'm going to sleep less. Usually doesn't work. Okay. You end up getting less done. The way I'm going to get more done is I'm going to extend my work day and I'm going to work until midnight. Doesn't get more done. You actually get less done. And there's studies that show that. The way I'm going to get more done is I'm going to skip breakfast and lunch. Not going to work. Okay. It's going to drain your energy. You're going to get sick. You're going to miss work, in terms of illness, miss work. Not in terms of the Office Space joke of, I wouldn't say I'm missing it, but, that kind of thing. It's going to happen. And yet that's what we kind of do. And I think it's unconscious. I don't think people, nobody really lives their life that way because they sat down and went, I think this is the way I'll design my life. That's not how that happens. So a lot of it is, for me as a coach, a lot of it is injecting intentionality in whatever components of your life. There's multiple zones of life. So there's health, there's relationships, there's spirituality, there's finances, there's career, there's, right, you've seen the kind of wheel of life exercises and they divide it up into 7 zones, and you'll see another one, it'll have 8 zones, and you can name them however you want to, but what it boils down to is there's different components of your life. They're all important. The problem is we can't focus on all of them at once, but there are some keystone ones that if you get those right, they begin to help the others. So an example, health and wellness is a keystone area. If you're not paying attention to your diet and your exercise and your sleep cycle, it affects everything else. Finances is another area that can be a keystone area. People find that as they improve their finances, other areas of their life also improve. Okay. So there's certain ones that are more keystone that fit into others. And the third keystone, by the way, is more the relationship side. Because again, if you have healthy relationships, it tends to benefit the other areas. A lot of the rest of them kind of fit in around those in terms of how they play out in your life.
Sure. So those 4 areas are more of the rocks, the priority aspects of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and then question of just managing your energy based on your routines of doing those things.
Right, based on how you run your life, as opposed to how your life runs you.
Yes, excellent point. There's a lot of times, especially with working, and uh, life tends to run us rather than
Mm-hmm.
we run our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
That's why I
So,
talk about injecting intentionality, is because what we do instead is we tend to respond as opposed to being proactive, where we act on our lives as opposed to letting our lives act on us. Even if something bad is happening, there's a huge difference emotionally and energetically from you're happening to something than something is happening to you.
mm,
So again, go back to the heart attack patient. if they have the response of, they're emotionally, if they feel like, well, because this heart attack happened, my doctor has told me I have to eat right and I have to exercise and I hate every minute of it. And I'm not going to enjoy this. And this is going to stink and it's going to be horrible. And I'm just going to, oh my goodness, I can't believe I have to eat this way. Well, it's not going to go well. If on the other hand they go, okay, yeah, this stank, this was not good, I did not enjoy this experience, but I'm going to take control of it, and I'm going to make sure I live my life in a way where I can't prevent it 100%, but I can lower the odds. So let me do what I can do to lower the odds. So what are the things I need to do that? Well, I need to eat differently. I'm going to choose to eat differently. See, that's intentional. You're taking ownership of it. And that literal attitudinal change increases your success.
Okay.
You're much more likely to stick to a diet plan when you've chosen to stick to a diet plan, as opposed to it's been dictated to you from outside. Now, don't get me wrong. Neither of those cases is it going to be easy. You're going
Sure.
to have some help and support and accountability and other things along the route, but it makes it more likely to succeed.
Mhm. So do you work with clients in kind of helping them, I guess, reset their attitude about different aspects of their lives as well?
80% of coaching is more about behavior and mindset, attitudes, whatever language you want to put,
Mhm.
uncovering limiting beliefs and eliminating them, uncovering mindset limits and rebuilding them, reestablishing and identifying, habits of behavior that you're doing that are unhealthy, and then helping you break those down and replace them with good, healthy habits. To me, that's what 80 to 90% of coaching is.
Mhm.
It's the strategic stuff, what goes on in your head. The tactical thing of, okay, I can use this tool. Doing a food log is a tool.
Mhm.
It's not that it's not important, but it's that by itself doesn't change anything. It's an unexamined life doesn't change. You
Mhm.
got to have that moment of reflection to be able to be intentional to actually change it. Knowledge by itself isn't power. Knowledge applied and put into action, that's powerful.
Mhm.
Okay, so again, just doing the tools, having a budget doesn't change your finances.
Okay.
Shocking. Okay, but it doesn't, because if you just write a bunch of numbers down on a piece of paper and then stick it in the drawer every month, that's not going to do anything. That doesn't change
Mhm.
your behavior. That doesn't change how you act. That doesn't change what you have left in your checking account at the end of the month.
Mhm.
You just keep write down everything you eat. You never look at it and think about it and reflect on how it is affecting your life. You're not going to change how you eat. So the data isn't enough. It's not the tools and the information as much as it is, what do we do to reflect on this, to examine it, to unpack it, to rebuild it and move forward.
Mhm.
And that usually, it's in our head much more than it is in our actions.
Sure. It's just kind of a question of getting it from your head, translating it into, okay, how am I going to make this work,
Right.
essentially?
And that's where the tools come in. The systems and the processes and the tools are the how. They're not the what or the why. The what and the why is your mindset material.
Sure, absolutely. So, are there some success stories from clients that you've worked with, perhaps, on how they're translating food and wellness, how they're becoming more productive, or it's a reciprocal relationship, undoubtedly, with productivity and food and wellness. But are there some examples?
Sure. So I'll take a couple of them. One is a financial coaching example. So we were just working on money. Okay, you stop and think for a minute. Okay, wait, what does that have to do with food and wellness? And they came to me after about, I don't know, 5 months of working together, 6 months, and they said, we have something weird going on. I said, okay, well, let's talk about it. What's going on? They said, we've both lost weight and we're feeling healthier and we're exercising in the morning and we're just working on money. What the heck is going on? And again, it comes back to, remember, finances is one of those keystone areas. It tends to feed over into the other areas. What it was is, as they paid more attention to what they were doing, they stopped eating out as much. Well, what did that mean? That meant less junk food. They started shopping and doing meal planning and really thinking about what they were eating. Not because I told them to, it just naturally kind of came about as we worked on, let's pay attention to what we really want out of our life. They're like, well, we want to be here for our grandkids. Okay. They were a little older. And okay, what do you need to do to be here for your grandkids? Well, we need to eat better. All right. So let's work that into the plan because it's going to show up in your money. okay, because you have to budget for that. You have to plan for that. So it wasn't that we deliberately focused in on you need to eat better, but as a natural result of getting disciplined in one area of your life, you begin to get disciplined in other areas of your life. I've had the same thing happen in reverse where a client has come to me to work on productivity, work on time, because they needed help figuring out how to fit all of the stuff that they had on their list into their day. Short answer, gets rid of some stuff on your list because your list is too long. That was actually the problem. But as we worked through that and figured out why are you allowing all these things onto your list? What is it about that's coming in? It was really about they had 5 things that they considered the most important things. So they said yes to all 5. Well, as we worked through that, they whittled that down and they recognized that there were really 3 areas. One was family for them, one was health. Okay.
Yeah.
Health usually shows up in your top 3, okay, for pretty much almost everybody. I mean, I guess there's some people out there that it's not in the top 3, but that's a different conversation. And then the other one for them happened to be around finances. Well, as they did that, they began to eliminate things, and again, they got healthier. Why? Well, they were sleeping better, they were eating better, they were less stressed out. So it's even though I don't deliberately sit down and target food, health, exercise, it comes out. If you're trying to manage your stress, guess what, folks? A walk is a really good way to manage stress. So I'm going to remind them, hey, are you going for a walk in the evening or in the morning? Plus, if it's a couple, go on the walk together and actually have a conversation. Okay? Think about it. You're helping your relationship. Okay. Depending on what you're talking about, you're probably helping other zones, whatever it is you're having a conversation about, and you're helping your health. So again, a lot of times there's activities that you can put in that actually end up helping 4 or 5 areas. But it's actually having the accountability to put them in. So I joke and I tell people sometimes coaching feels like this. It feels like my job as a coach is to tell you the stuff you already knew that you should be doing and then hold you accountable to actually doing it. It's not it's not rocket science. I mean, financial, spend less than you make. Health, stop eating so much junk food and get enough sleep and drink enough water. It's sometimes it's obvious stuff. And I mean, don't get me wrong, there's details and there's important things and there can be stuff that comes out that does require expertise. So it's not like just anyone can do it. But mentally, a lot of it is stuff that at some level you're supposed to be doing, but you're not doing it. Okay, so that's where coaching can really add value because it helps you do it and actually put it into action and make it a part of your life where 17 years later you're still doing the right things. Not just in a momentary moment. Because what happens to most of us, right? We set our New Year's resolution. I'm going to get healthy this year. Well, first off, that's a horrible goal. There's no structure to it, but whatever. We'll leave that aside. And I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week and I'm going to eat right. And you do it till about February 14th. And then it's gone.
Yeah.
And next year, what do? You set the same resolution. Instead, if health is really important, find a health and wellness coach. Find somebody that specializes in that area. Okay. I happen to know one, right? And work with them. If finance is important, find a financial coach, a money coach, work with them. That's where that value gets added because you can identify those things that are really the keystones that are most important and then focus in on them. And again, for most people, there's some that are very commonly going to be the most important ones, and health and wellness is certainly one of them.
Absolutely. And I love just how you really emphasize the natural flow and the natural effects that come from, focusing on the other areas, whether, you're focusing on productivity or you're focusing on stress management and just the natural benefits or effects that occur in those other areas. And it's not as complicated as people make it out to be, for sure.
Yeah, it's not as complicated, and as well, it's surprising to people, and it really shouldn't be, because you stop and think it's like I'm eating better, therefore I have more energy, therefore I get more done, therefore I feel less stressed. Well, yeah, that's a pretty natural equation if you actually just stop and think about it. Or you can, and again, you can start that chain in different places for different people. But the idea of if you start taking care of those things that you know are very important,
Mhm.
the other
Absolutely.
stuff begins to get better. you know,
Yeah, definitely, and just, then, the next challenge is just keeping it going,
and then
keeping
doing
that
it.
keeping
yeah,
that habit going,
yeah.
so, absolutely. So what are some first steps that people can take if they wanna really improve their productivity, just really kinda balance things? What are some things that they can focus on?
So one of the things that I usually have people start doing right from the very beginning is journaling. Again, now people are going, wait, what? Okay, so writing things down has tremendous power when it comes to the way we view the world. And so, writing down what are the things that are really the most important to you, just free write, just sit down and start writing. Don't
Mhm.
judge it, don't edit it, don't worry about spelling or grammar or syntax or any of that junk. If you prefer to type it. I don't really care. But get it out of your head and onto paper. And then take a moment and look at it. And then again, like I said, do an audit. Go back and look at your time, look at your calendar, look at your checkbook, look at any evidence that you have of how you've been living your life. Most of us, those two are pretty handy. And kind of compare the two. If they're out of alignment, and I'll warn you, they usually are. Okay. Now it's time to take a step back, and this is where we begin to inject some activity, some process, some tools. The problem with injecting the activity before we've refocused, it's for me the arc of coaching is refocus, gain control, set a plan. The problem is most of us want to set a plan, but we don't
Mm.
refocus or gain control. Well, then the plan doesn't work. Okay, that's kind of what a New Year's resolution is. Set a plan. Okay, so it start with refocus. That's what the journaling is. That's what the writing down is. That's what the audit is. That's what's figuring out what truly is the things that you're not doing that you want to be doing. Because again, productivity, doing the right things, not just doing everything.
Mhm.
From there, you need to begin to eliminate some things. What do you need to say no to so you can say yes to the things that are the most important? That may be turning down a commitment that you've been doing for the last 15 years. Okay. Not telling you it will be, but it could be. It's finding those things that you need to get rid of. You don't get more productive by adding more stuff. You get more productive by taking some things away. Okay.
Good point, good point.
You know, and so you've got to figure out what am I going to take away? What am I going to eliminate? And then what am I going to add back in that's going to be the right things? I would also suggest looking into those four routines I mentioned earlier: morning, evening, work startup, work shutdown, and trying to start structuring some of those things into your day. Find a system, a single system to capture the stuff that's going around in your head. Believe it or not, cognitively, there's some studies that say that something like 50% of the energy that our brains burn is
Mhm.
remembering stuff. It's just trying to remember all the stuff that you've got in your head. Okay. Well, write that stuff down or put it on a to-do list app. Or again, I'm somewhat tool agnostic. I have tools that I prefer, but you find a tool that works for you, use it. I'm not going to yell at you. But a way of capturing all that information. And a lot of times what happens instead, we have a list at home, we have a list at work, we have another set of things that, maybe we have as a list that is on the third list. And then, we have the things that we jot down on post-it notes that are stuck all over our monitor at work. And, the other things at home on the mirror. And then there's the other. No, you got to centralize that. Find a single system. People ask, how many lists should I have? I said, well, it's an easy answer. How many lives do you have? Okay. Because that's how many lists you should have. Because guess what? If you're getting the groceries, you're not doing something else. There's always an opportunity cost. So
Mhm,
admit that, recognize that the stuff you do at work and the stuff you do at home is connected.
mhm,
Okay. It's going to be. I don't care who you are. I don't care how perfect your world is. It's still going to be connected. So integrate that. That also allows you to have a single point of contact where all of that information lives. Once you
mhm,
trust that, your brain relaxes and starts letting some of that stuff go. It makes it much easier to leave work at work and be home when you're home, be with
mhm.
your family when you're with your family, and not be thinking about the 72 things that, oh, I need to remember to do that at work tomorrow, and I need to remember to do that at work tomorrow. And that's what your brain is doing. It's just looping. Burns
Sure.
tremendous energy. Okay. And emotional as well as physical. So capturing that information would be another quick tip. And again, that can be harder depending on your life, but it's still something that you would do. And then from there, you begin to inject, I would begin to inject other tools like a calendar and some other things to use, because most of us use calendars wrong. We use calendars kind of more as a task list. We use email as a task list. Those don't work. Okay, they're terrible for capturing information and tasks, yet that's what we do. So that's where it gets a little bit more personal, and we have to break down and examine what are you doing that's not working, and then how can we start to restructure and eliminate those things to work out a system that works for you. Because the truth is, there's broad things I can tell you that are common, but everybody's morning routine is going to be different. Slightly, maybe, but still different, because there's different things that are important to you. Plus, your life is different. Whether you have young kids at home, your mornings look very different than when you got teenagers. Okay, duh, but it's recognizing that and tailoring those things to fit for your life is where most of the hard work comes in.
Sure, absolutely. So I love that. Just really refocusing, rebalancing, and uh, and having you as the coach there to ask the tough questions. So to oh well, Scott, how can people get in contact with you for more information?
Absolutely. So the home site for me on the web is at inspiredstewardship.com. I've actually set up a page for listeners of this show. They can find it at inspiredstewardship.com/food. And from that, I'll have some free resources that I have. So some of these things about routines and things, I have some downloads that you can have that walk you through that. If finances is an area you're struggling, I got some on that. If talent and kind of leadership and personality and communication, I've got some things on that. So I've got a couple of different resources. I also have a productivity course that people are happy to check out, and I'll put that information on that site as well over at inspiredstewardship.com/food.
Excellent. And we will include all of that in the show notes so people can access it. And Scott, it has been a pleasure. I love your energy, your focus, and how you really get into the what is my main thing, and how does my day revolve around that thing, so to speak. So
Well, thank you so much.
fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Great. Thank you.